If you want to become wealthy, you need to create a liquidity event and leverage into wealth. You can put 5% down to buy a company and you can own 100% of that company. What people don't know is that when you sell.
What it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs today in the studio. Folks, as always, I got a real treat for you. Two-time champion Chad Peterson in the house. What's up, Chad?
What's going on?
Had to bring you back because I got a lot of input last time you were on the show about buying and selling businesses. Apparently there's a little bit of demand for that. Apparently there's a $10 trillion transfer of wealth happening in the next 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a lot of people don't know is there's actually $68 trillion of money that's about to change hands over the next 10 years. You know, the baby boomers, they're retiring, they're expiring, they're dying off. They need to hand their money down to the younger generation. But out of that 68 trillion is $10 trillion in the form of businesses that have to change hands. And there's a lot of problems with that. The first problem is we have an income gap, right? We've got the younger generation that they don't really have the money to buy these businesses. So we got to get creative on how they can buy those businesses. We also have a knowledge gap and a work ethic gap. So we're trying to find the right people to buy these businesses because there's so many of them. There's literally thousands of businesses for sale right now. But if you don't know how to buy it and you don't have the cash to buy it, well, then you have to learn how to do that. And that's exactly what I teach.
How to buy them or sell them?
How to buy them and how to sell them. So I sell businesses. We sell a lot of businesses. We work with 250 to 300 business sellers a month, showing them how to package it up, how to present it, how to get ready to sell, how to sell for max dollar, and then what to do with that liquidity event, because liquidity leads to wealth and paychecks lead to poverty. So a lot of times business owners, they're running their business day in, day out, and they never think about selling. But that's the one step that they could take to really turn themselves into having wealth. They would have a lot of wealth if they sold their business, as long as they made the proper next move. Because a lot of business owners think that selling your business is all about retiring, and it's not. It's about a liquidity event. And what do you do with that liquidity event to have wealth, time, and freedom in your life? And that's what I teach. So what we do is we show somebody how to sell their business and then how to take that liquidity event and turn it into the NLB, the next larger business.
If they're burnt out on their current business, what would make them want to jump into another one?
Well, because you get tired of what you're doing. You know, you're not tired of working, you're tired of what you're doing. You need something new. You run out of passion. You know, I trademarked the passion cycle, and the passion cycle is, you know, you're obsessed with it, you're in love with your business, and then you fall into passion after a while, and you're still getting out of bed, you're excited to go to work, but then eventually it falls into boredom. You're bored over it, and then eventually you're like, man, I hate this damn business. I just want out. And that's the danger zone. And that's unfortunately when people call me, because it's too late. Because I say where there's no passion, there's no profit. If you don't love what you're doing, I'm going to be able to see it on the profit and loss statement. I'll be able to see it on the tax return. So they call me after the earnings are down, and I'm like, man, I can't help you. Because who wants to buy a business that's on decline? So you should have called me when you were doing well. So I tell people that when you're doing well is the time to sell.
You like these little rhymes.
Well, they're true. I mean, I think all quotes are, though. Like, I think that's the power of quotes. You know, you can read a quote that's only one sentence long and it can mean more than a whole page. You know, I think there's a lot of condensed knowledge in small quotes, and this couldn't be further from well, how should I say that? This is more true than that. When you're doing well is when you should sell. Because if you call me and you want to sell your business and last year you were doing great, but this year you've lost $100,000, I can't help you. You don't have anything to sell. And they'll say, well, I've been in business for 20 years. Doesn't matter. Comes down to cash flow. So if you were making $500,000 last year, I could put $1.5 million in your pocket, probably in the next 3 months. But if you made $500,000 last year and now you only made $300,000 this year, people don't want to buy a sinking ship. So call me when you're doing well. I'll get you more money, and then that money turns into a bigger business, paying you out more money.
Well, if I was doing well, I might think, why would I sell it? It's doing well.
Well, you can. I mean, I did that. I lost my ass thinking like that. And that's, you know, that's part of why I'm here today. I mean, in 2007, I was making about $5 million a year. And had I sold before 07, I could have sold that company for I don't know, at least 10 million. I mean, even on a fire sale, but probably more like 20 million. And I was like, I'm doing so well. Why would I sell? And '08 came and it brought me my answer. I lost my ass.
Because nobody wanted it once
Hell
it started
no.
to decline?
Hell no, yeah, nobody wanted it. So in '07, I was worth, let's just say I sold it for 15 million. That's what I was worth in '07 on that one business. I was worth zero in '08.
So what are you trying to tell people? That if they have a business right now and it's doing well, they should sell it?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're still passionate about it, don't sell it. If you still love what you do, keep your business. But if you're after wealth, time, and freedom in your life, which is what I show people how to have, if your business is not bringing you wealth, time, and freedom, more than likely that business owns you. You don't own it.
What do you say to the people that are like, they're trying to scale it?
Well, scale to a certain degree that you want, but don't spend your cash flow on that scaling. So here's how it works. Let's just use easy numbers, okay? Let's just say you're making $500,000, which isn't a lot of money, but let's just say you're making $500,000. And you're like, I want to make $700,000 a year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get 2 more vans, a trailer. I'm going to spend some more money on marketing, and I'm going to hire a salesman. Well, you were making 500 grand. Now you just spent 250 grand to grow. Now you're cash flowing 250. Forget about that 500 number because you just had to buy vans and equipment and trailers and marketing and a sales guy. So you spent your cash flow and now your company is worth less. So if your plan doesn't work, the marketing doesn't work, your salesman doesn't perform, your techs don't perform, whatever, your company is worth less.
Why are you spending your cash flow, or are you spending the cash you have?
You're spending your cash flow typically because the money comes in your door through your business and you're like, hey, I have expenses. So yeah, let's buy that van, let's buy that trailer, let's buy all this equipment, let's buy all these assets, let's buy all this inventory. Let's hire a sales guy that probably won't perform. And so what happens is, it happens all the time. They say, well, we went to grow last year and now we're just tired. Now we're just burned out. We just want to sell. And I say, you should have called me when you were making $500,000 a year because you spent all that money on growth and now you only made 300. So last year when you did absolutely nothing, your business was worth 1.5 million. Now it's only worth 900 grand. You cost yourself $600,000 on maybe possible potential growth. Just call me before you go grow your business. Let me give you a big chunk of money by selling your business. Use that chunk of money wisely and leverage it into wealth, because liquidity leads to wealth, but really leverage leads to wealth because you can buy a business through the Small Business Administration or even a traditional bank, which I have access to that. Every American can qualify for $5 million, but you have to have some down payment money for that. So if you sell this business that you're not quite passionate about, you're kind of burned out on, it's not bringing you wealth, time, and freedom, sell it. Move up to the NLB instead of being addicted to growth, because most business owners are not making the money they really desire to because they don't know how. They don't know how to scale. And then they get tired and burned out. They call me and I say, sorry, man, I can't help you. You're not profitable enough.
What's the minimum profit?
Minimum profit to sell a business, really around 140 grand. And I'll tell you why. Because somebody's not going to leave corporate America making 80 or 90 or even 100 to go make $140,000 because they're going to have debt on that loan. You know, you're going to have to borrow the money from a bank. So why would you leave 80 or 100 to have a note for, say, 400 grand to make 140 grand? So it's just doesn't math. The math doesn't math.
So if I'm running a business, it sounds like if I bought marketing and a salesperson and 2 more trucks, if the business was going good, that would be a wise investment so I could get more business. And now instead of 500,000 cash flow, I'm at $1 million.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great scenario. So here's how that's going to look in reality. You're going to buy the 2 vans, the trailer, the equipment, the salesperson, and say 2025. You're not going to see those earnings really in 2025. You're going to see more expenses than you are winnings in 25. Then you're going to have to show it in 2026. But if you spent $200,000, $250,000 on that, then you have to make a hell of a lot more than that to justify that expense. because it is an expense. And that's what business owners don't understand. It's like, oh, I spent that on a salesperson. Well, that's a good use of my money. Okay, but you have to have more win than you have spend. So did it really help you win, or was it more of a cost? So you're not really going to see your earnings if you succeed at your plan until 2027. So that puts you 2 years out. So my question is, if you're making 500 grand and you spent 250 to grow and doing nothing right now, you're worth $1.5 million. I can put $1.5 million in your pocket right now. Then why would you go work for 2 more years to grow, have all these expenses? Every time you have a growth cycle, you have more stress, not enough time in the day, more headaches. Why not sell now, buy a bigger business, and make 5 or 7 times more earnings than what you're making today? And the only logical answer is, I love what I do. In that case, stick with what you do. If you love it, stay there.
So landscaping companies doing, let's say, $1 million a year, but it takes all this work and then they want to sell it. Who comes in and buys it? Aren't they going to just have the same expenses?
They're going to have the same expenses, but I like to sell businesses when they're running steady. So if they're going through a growth phase, they think anyway, they're spending way too much. The best businesses to sell are the ones that are steady in earnings. And whenever somebody buys a business, you don't come in and fire people and change everything and get cute and clever and have all sorts of ideas. Just run it how the business owner was running it. Because the number one mistake that I see is business owners coming in and saying, well, that guy doesn't know what I know. I'm going to do it better than he did. I'm going to grow this business. Well, dude, you're going to spend money and you're going to reduce the value of your company. Just let it produce cash flow. And then what business owners don't know is that if you buy a business and just let it earn you what it earns and pay down the debt service, in 5 years on a 10-year note, you've paid off half the company. So if you borrowed $5 million on a 10-year note, every single year, 10% of that is getting paid off. So in 5 years, you have $2.5 million in equity.
What about interest?
You get the interest back, man. Number one, it's write-off. If you sell your company in 5 years after you've gotten bored or burned out, you get all the debt service payments back minus the interest, but you're able to write it off while you have the interest. So it's virtually free.
So anybody listening with a business that's doing, let's say, 140, how much?
I mean, minimum, yeah, 140.
So if you're listening to this and you have a business and you're making at least $140,000, you're saying that it would be wise, as long as you're in a growth phase or a steady to growing, can't be in decline.
Right.
And how do people figure that out? Just 3 years 3 years trailing revenue?
Exactly. Yeah. I need 3 years tax returns, 3 years tax returns, 3 years profit and loss, 3 years balance sheets. And then we tell them exactly what their business is worth today.
But if they run those numbers and they say, okay, every year we're going in the right direction, we're making money, now's the time to sell this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Well, I guess I missed the question. What was the question?
Well, I'm trying to figure out, there's people listening to this show that have businesses. I'm sure they're growing and I'm sure they're running around there thinking about scaling it. And, what you're saying makes sense. If they use the cash flow to scale the company successfully, well, then their business is becoming more valuable.
Yeah. I mean, again, it goes back to, are you passionate about it? And then what do you want? Which most people have never asked themselves what they want.
Well, I'd want to sell and exit and get wealth, time, and freedom.
Yeah, that's what I've done. I've done that 6 times in my life. That's why I'm here to teach your people.
But if I sell my company, my cash flow is gone. Now I have no cash flow. Right. All I have is 1.5 million.
Yeah, and then you buy the NLB. You buy the next larger business.
So then where's my wealth, time, and freedom coming from? Because now I just got another business to run.
It's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. When you're running a business like these people you used to speak of, you're running a business. You're in the headache business. I don't care what kind of business you run, you're in the headache business. You got some headache. Payroll, people, problems, inventory, vendors, headaches, drama. Whenever you have a liquidity event, so let's just say you're making 500 grand a year, and that's, not that much money, but to some it is. Now you sell for 1.5. You can literally buy a $10 million business paying you $3.5 million a year with that $1.5 million liquidity event. So in small business, you're in the headache business. Now, if you leverage up to a $10 million business, you have less headaches. Now you're playing the CEO. There's people in place. There's processes. There's systems. Like here at your company, I go upstairs and there's people everywhere doing their job. Most of these people that are making $500,000 a year, they're wearing 8 hats. What people don't know is that when you sell your business, you not only create liquidity that leads to wealth, you buy the NLB, the next larger business, and you get rid of 80% of your headaches. So you make more money, have wealth, time, and freedom without the headaches by moving up to a larger business. And I find that businesses that start to get headache free is when they're around 5, 6, 7 million. That's when you get to take over the owner's role and the headaches disappear. Because the owner that runs that company now, he has a job, basically. He goes in there 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week. Maybe he oversees, maybe he's a leader or a manager in the company, but he's not wearing all the hats. He just got his job. So you take over that company, the business owner, the seller, has to train you contractually. He has to train you on how to do his job. You take over his position, let the business do what it's going to do, and let it pay down the debt service, and you're building up equity. You're building up wealth every single year, so you don't have to grow. I tell people that scaling is failing because you're spending cash flow on potential, possible, maybe growth. It's not guaranteed. But what is guaranteed, if you run that business how it's best ran and let the debt service get paid down, now you become wealthy.
Well, then by that rationale, if I'm sitting on a business doing $500,000, I just simply sell it, take the 1.5 and just go buy my next larger business. I have less headaches and more money.
Absolutely.
Rather than try to scale my business, I can just buy the scale.
Yeah, you can already buy because that's why like if somebody were to come and buy your company, I mean, your company is a different animal. I don't know your numbers, but I guarantee it's worth over $100 million. It's a different animal. But how much did you fight, bite, scratch, and tear to get where you're at? Wouldn't somebody want to pay for that? And now look at your life. Just think about you. You pulled up in your Ferrari.
Rolls.
You drove your Rolls Royce today. Even makes my point even further. You and I are going to get done with this podcast. We're going to go smoke a cigar. Is your life really that tough?
No.
But it was tough getting here, wasn't it?
Yeah, theoretically. I look at the bright side of things. So for me, it was fun. But, I've done it for 24 years. It is getting a little bit, not as fun, but that's only because our growth is not skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. So what about if a business is skyrocketing growth?
Maybe I have a hard time making the point, but maybe your listeners and you can work with me. Always check in with your passion cycle. I'm not saying to sell your business if you love it. Hell, keep the thing. But
it has nothing to do with love. It's skyrocketing. Why would I sell it when it's skyrocketing?
I guess what I'm kind of saying. That's what I'm trying to say is, like, if you love it, stay in it. But what's it doing for you? Is it bringing you wealth, time, and freedom? How do your books? A lot of people think they're skyrocketing because they have a lot of big gross numbers. Oh, we're going to do 20 million this year. Gross? We just looked at a business the other day. No shit. They're doing $40 million a year as a construction company. They're making $300,000 a year. Why would you go do something? Why would you have $40 million in generated gross income, gross revenue, and then make $300,000? I'd rather go be a truck driver.
That's terrible margins.
Terrible. So when you're growing, what are you looking at as far as net? What are you netting out of this? Are you just spending because bigger sounds better? Bigger isn't always better. It's just not.
Well, what if you're growing and your cash flow is growing?
Great. If you love it, keep it. If not, sell it.
But why now instead of like, let me let this thing grow for another year?
You can, but when you're doing well is the time to sell, and you have to determine that. I mean, nobody can determine that for you.
How long does it take to sell?
I can usually get it done in 6 to 9 months.
So really you have to have a kind of a little bit of a future pacing. You have to look and like maybe you're starting to stall. Like let's say you were growing by 60% year over year. Now you're at 30%, which is still good, but it's less than it was. Is that business now less valuable?
No. As long as we don't see a decline on the tax returns and the profit.
Decline in top line or cash flow?
Cash flow.
So if I were looking to sell in 6 to 9 months, would I stop, buying coffee and stop doing all the fancy shit I do?
Well, you're a different animal. You've got 7, 8 businesses?
Yeah.
Under one umbrella?
No.
Well, no, that's different.
Should I put them under one umbrella?
No.
Because then my top line would go up and theoretically so would my net.
No, you want to keep them separate companies. And so if you have 7 companies and they're all kind of tied to you in some way, but if you want to sell one of them, you can just sell one of them. It doesn't affect the rest of them.
So I put myself in the listener's shoes. If I'm listening to this and I have a business and it's growing, I never would have thought to sell it right now. I'd be thinking, man, let me hold on to this thing, get the numbers up, and then sell it someday.
Yeah, the problem with someday thinking and one day thinking is that one day never comes, man. So what do you want in life? If you want wealth, time, and freedom, then you can sell and buy an NLB, the next larger business. They're out there right now. There's $10 trillion of businesses that are about to change hands. You can do that right now.
Would I find the business I'm looking to buy before I'd sell mine?
It's not a bad idea to start looking. You don't have to. Also, I'm going to tell your listeners this. One thing that's really powerful is that every year we have to do taxes. Everybody knows that. But every year you do taxes, then you should be checking with somebody like myself to figure out what your business is worth. Because really a big problem, we see this all the time. It's so bad. A lot of times business owners, they just live out of their business. They're expensing everything out of it because they're playing the tax game, and that's understandable. But if you don't pay taxes on it, I can't get you the value for it. So if you go out there and you spend $300,000 in bullshit.
So you're net zero.
Yeah. I mean, let's just say you could have shown 800 grand, but you wrote everything off and you're only showing me 400 grand. Well, I can only get you 1.2 for the business if you're showing 400 grand. But if you were showing me 800 grand and paying taxes on it, I can sell it for 2.4 million. And so 2.4 million buys a bigger, larger business whenever you move on. See, everybody understands this when it comes to houses. You don't live in the first house that you and your wife bought. You're probably working on your third. But when people buy a business, they fall in love with it. They think it's their baby. They think it's their, they get too emotionally involved. All it is an asset. And it's there to create wealth, time, and freedom. That's what it's there for. So if it can do all you want right now by selling it, then sell it now. If you love it, keep the damn thing. But if you're growing and you love the growth and you love the stress of that and you love the chaos of that and you love the drama of that, yeah, stay. But if you want wealth, time, and freedom now, sell it, buy a bigger business with less headaches.
I'd almost argue that even if it was doing that and you did love it, you could love the next one just as much.
Absolutely. That's what
I'd love it more because it was doing more.
Yeah. See, you've built a business, man, I've never built a business as big as yours. Personally, I never have. I mean, my business is, I guess, comparable dollar size, but I haven't done what you've done, build this personal brand and all that, I made my money by building a company that wasn't paying me much. It would pay me 200 grand. I was young though. I was real young. So it'd make me 200 grand. Well, I'd go sell it for 400 or 500 grand. Well, what can I do with 400 or 500 grand? Well, I can leverage into a $5 million business. What's that $5 million business pay me? Pays me $1.7 million a year. I was only making 200 grand a year before.
What if I have partners and I'm giving distributions? Can I consider that cash flow? Because you pay them after EBITDA. Great
question. So you're paying partners and distributions, right?
Yeah. Let's say I made $1 million and I say, okay, we're gonna pay out $1 million. So everybody proportion to what they own, get it. So now we made zero at the end, but that's not how it works. It shows we made $1 million, even though I dispersed it.
That comes down to the question of, were they a necessary ingredient to earn the money, and what is the replacement cost of them should you sell? So let's just say, I know you have partners.
The cash flow is before distributions, not after.
Well, the distributions to owners, they call it owner's salary, owner's distribution.
Well, salary and distribution is different.
I know it is, but I'm saying it still lands in the same bucket as cash flow, right?
No,
it does.
No,
it does. Because
it doesn't.
You're an owner.
It doesn't matter.
If you're an owner,
if I take a salary and I take distributions, the salary is expense. The distributions are not.
Right, but I'm talking about valuation.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just saying, like, it would be better if you didn't take a salary and you paid yourself distributions, because when it comes to the value, the company shows, for example, $1 million. Now, if I took a $300,000 salary, it would show $700,000, which would hurt my valuation.
No, that's what I'm saying. It all goes to the same bucket.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it does. Been doing this for 25 years, brother. All goes to the same bucket. So salary and the income of the other business, plus add backs such as owner salary, taxation.
Well, how do you calculate net then?
Cash flow.
Cash flow isn't net.
Cash flow is net. There are three most important things about businesses, thinking about the value of them, how to run them, how to sell them. Number one is cash flow. Number two, cash flow. Last and not least, cash flow.
Yeah, but
so
watch.
All what you just talked about ends up in the same bucket, brother, when it comes to evaluation. Then what you do is you back it up from there. If you have partners, okay, Brad, you made $1 million, which I know you make more than that, but let's say easy numbers. You made $1 million between you and your partners. Okay, cool. $1 million. Your business services of software and all that, your business could be worth more like $8 million on $1 million. Then we back it up and say, okay, you have partners, but were they necessary in earning those monies? Because the new owner is going to take it over. So who's staying? Who's leaving? Then we do add backs on those who weren't necessary in making those dollars. So if you have partners that aren't really earning the dollars, they're just partners. Or it goes the same way, like a lot of business owners pay their kids out of their business. They send them to college, they buy them a car, and they expense it out of the company. Well, that's an add back. The new owner will not have that expense. So we put it all in the same bucket, and then on the valuation, we figure out what is really the owner's salary or owner's earnings, which is called seller's discretionary earnings, which is cash flow, which is net of what the company is doing for the owners.
Well, then how are you supposed to go in and not change anything?
Well, you mean on the salary or the distributions?
If the current owner was making $500,000 and still netting $1 million, because your salaries do not go into your net. Your distributions do.
When it comes to evaluation, it does. We're going to figure out what it does for the owner.
But if you're stepping in as the owner, why would you factor that in? You have to pay yourself just like he had to pay himself.
Well, let's just say you have an airplane, and that airplane costs you $2 million a year to run.
Yeah, but we're not talking about airplanes. We're talking about salaries.
But I'm giving an example. It works the same way. Let's say it costs you $2 million to run that aircraft, and you park it right here at Las Vegas Airport. I don't want the plane. It's not necessary to me. That's a $2 million add
But
back.
if the business owns the plane and the payments due, whether I own it or you own it.
You keep it. I don't want it.
So if I sell this business, I can't, the lease that it has, you owe the lease when you step in.
Yeah, the lease, I'd have to get a new lease. Yep. I have to take that. That's necessary. But there's some things that aren't necessary to run the business. So I'm answering your question a different way. If you have partners that get distributions, are they necessary to the income, or could they be gone? And do they want to leave? Because sometimes people do want to leave.
Well, they'd have to if we sold.
They'd have to leave?
Yeah, they don't just get to keep their equity.
No, I'm saying, is it necessary? Are they necessary to the operation? If they're not necessary, you can get rid of them.
Well, shareholders aren't necessary.
In your case?
In any case.
Well, it just depends. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they get partners and.
I know, but you I think we're saying two different things.
Okay, we might be.
I've been running businesses for a long time, and so if the business generates $1 million net after my salaries, after this guy's salaries, after expenses, it generates net. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's $1 million.
The business, yep.
Then if there's shareholders and I decide to disperse the net, hey, everybody, we're going to distribute this profit, the net, mm-hmm. and I give everybody the money. So now mm-hmm. there's no $1 million. On my financial statement, it will show that the business made $1 million, even though I gave it away. Mm-hmm. It'll show that it was there. Why? Because it's distributions are after net, not before. Like I don't give it away and then say, look, my business made nothing. Yeah, you did. You made $1 million, mm-hmm. prick. And you decided to distribute it, which is your business. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, that net cash flow is not affected by shareholders because they do it. They calculate the net cash flow from the business. So the business decided to give out their profit, but they made $1 million no matter what. Now my salary, that would come out of that number because it's an expense. Now again, let's say I took $200,000. Well, if I'm the owner and I took $200,000 salary out of that same $1 million, it wouldn't say $1 million anymore because 200 that wouldn't have been calculated before now is. Well, then I made 800 grand, but it still don't matter. 800 grand, $1 million, it doesn't matter. It's after expenses is what you net.
So I'm going to show
all my expenses, and then there's the net.
So I'm gonna say it this way to you. You got $1 million that you paid in distributions, right? You got $200,000 salary. We're going to look at that 1 million plus 200 grand. We're going to put it in the same bucket. We're going to say, okay, that's $1.2 million that the company made.
So we just don't factor in the owner's salary at all, even though they're running the business?
Yeah, because
someone needs to run the business.
It's all right. So it's all cash flow. Then you look at that $1.2 million bucket in the valuation, and I know how to do this. I mean, not everybody does. This is what I do for a living. We look at that 1.2, we go through your business and say, what would the new owner stand to make?
Let's say you have to pay them at least 100.
Well, let's just say they're going to make half that because some of the people are going to leave and they're not necessary to the operation anymore.
Yeah, so you'd only be able to add half of that.
Now that's $600,000 in cash flow there. Now you paid out distributions, but that still is seller's discretionary earnings. That's owner income. What's necessary whenever you buy the company? What's necessary to stay? That's part of the valuation. That's what I do. I mean, it kind of gets geeky in math, but I know how you're thinking about it. You're thinking about it when it comes to taxes and how you play the tax game. But when it comes to valuation, all that comes in the same bucket. And then we decide what that cash flow is going to be for the new owner. And it also affects your sales price. So that's something I do for every business owner.
I understand if an owner's just, calling it a salary because they own it, they can put themselves on payroll. Mm-hmm. Just like if I put my kid on payroll for 14 grand so I can leverage the tax loophole, yep. They would add that back. Why? Because my kid's not getting 14 grand.
He's an add back.
But if my kid actually was doing something to make that business generate revenue,
absolutely.
Well, then I wouldn't add that back. Why? Well, because dude, my kid's going to remain there if you want it to be the same business. Because if my kid leaves, well, now you're going to have to pay probably another kid 20 grand.
Yeah. So it just depends on if they're necessary to the operation for sure. But, there's a lot of people out there that, and we might have confused some folks there with some of that math, but there's a lot of people out there that are running businesses and they don't know. And that's, every time I talk to you, Brad, you and I are friends, we just talk like this, but you're a different animal. Most people out there don't know how to run a business. They know how to scale a business. They're spending money not very wisely. They're not really growing.
Well, they're living off the business.
They're living off the business. They're not growing the way they should. So a lot of times for business owners, it could be a reset point. Like, okay, I've done pretty good, but I know I fucked up somewhere here because it's not bringing me what I want. So go ahead and sell my business and do what Chad teaches. Because I teach this stuff. As you know, I have courses and I teach people how to do this. And I do events, live with you. And so I teach them how to do it. But it could be a restart point. A lot of people go through divorces. They need to sell they get into nasty disputes in divorces because the wife thinks it's worth $10 million. And he's like, it's not worth $10 million. I'm not even making $1 million. How's it worth 10? And they're caught up in court for years because nobody really knows the value of a company. So a lot of people can sell their business and start anew. They can start a new life, learning what they've learned the hard way. start over and learn how to run a business the right way. That's what I teach people how to do.
Well, if I were trying to convince people listening to sell their business, what I would say is, listen, you're trying to grow and scale your business. I can show you how to 10x your revenue. Your revenue, not your business's revenue, but your revenue.
Yes, correct.
Which is really why they're trying to scale a business. So I'd say, Chad, if I was trying to close you on it, I'd say, Chad, what are you trying to do? I want to grow my business so I can make more money. And I go, well, what if I could show you how to make more money? Would it matter if it's your business or not? The answer would be no, I guess not.
If you get them to be honest, they'd say no. They don't give a shit about the business. They want wealth, time, and freedom in their life. They do.
Yeah. But again, people are stuck thinking that, well, dude, it's my business. I got to grow it if I want to make more money. What you're saying and what you can teach somebody is not necessarily, because if you took your current business, for example, and just traded it for a business doing 10 times that, why wouldn't they? And that's how I would position it, because that makes more sense to me as a business owner. I would say, dude, you want to make 10 times the revenue? Yeah. Trade your business for that business. And
100%.
literally all you're doing is you're trading your current business for another business. And now you're making 10 times the revenue.
Absolutely. That's what I did. Like I said, I took $200,000 that I was making, turned that into $500,000, turned that into $5 million, making me $1.8 million a year. Yeah. And by the way, it only takes 5% to buy a company. You can put 5% down to buy a company, and you can own 100% of that company. Where else can you get that kind of return? Where can you put 5% down on a $5 million business, which is $250,000? Where can you put $250,000 down on something and own 100% of it and make $1.8 million a year? Nowhere in the world.
From a emotion-free standpoint, that's probably, one of the best investments you can do. But again, people aren't going to be thinking the way you're thinking. That's the problem with most people. They don't get the shell game, because all it is I have a business doing $1 million. However, I'm spending it and, writing it down. Let's say it's making $1 million, even if I'm paying off over here so I don't have to pay taxes. At the end of the day, it's making $1 million for me. And I'm trying to figure out how to get it to make me more. Well, I usually will take the $1 million and invest it into the company, which actually makes the company worth less. If I just swapped the company directly for a bigger company.
Absolutely.
Even Steven. Most people don't think that's possible. That's the problem.
It is the problem. And thank you for saying it. Very well said. Want to give yourself a bomb there?
Yeah.
Give yourself a bomb, man. Good work. That's the problem, is that people just don't think like that because they get stuck in their day to day. And I don't know. They're not thinking about the larger picture. They're just going day to day, the monotony of it. But if they just sit there and pause for a second and think, why the hell am I doing this? Why don't I just sell my business now and have wealth now? And I think part of it, man, is we're taught in life that everything is sequential. Like first grade, second grade, third grade, everything. You got to get this certificate. You got to get this degree. You got to get this promotion. And it doesn't work that way, really. You can literally take a quantum leap right now. You can sell your business right now, and you can become a multimillionaire this year.
So let's see how many people we can get in a room that have a successful business with a growth rate that qualify, and explain it to them.
Yeah,
and I would bet
that's the problem. I can only handle about 60 of them right now.
But I would bet that the majority of people in the room, once you fully explain it, because I've seen it explained, would probably just sell their business.
Yes.
Because again, why would you sit there and hold on to this one and try to grow this one when all you'd have to do, because what you want is more money. Well, then just trade it. Just give the keys to this person and pick up the keys to this one. Mm-hmm. That's how easy it really is.
Absolutely.
Because when you think about it, I'm selling my business, I'm taking the money and I'm putting it down on this bigger business. But this business, maybe I don't owe anything. This one I'm going to have to owe something on. What do you say to that?
Well, yeah, you do owe something on the new business, but again, you're taking 5% of what the business is to buy it. So if it's a $5 million business.
Yeah, but now I'm in debt.
Right. But that debt is healthy debt is good. If you buy a boat or a Ferrari or a Rolls or a house you can't afford that doesn't make you money, that's all bad debt. Credit card debt, that's bad debt.
They're liabilities.
Yeah, that's bad debt. But if you want to become wealthy, you need to create a liquidity event and leverage into wealth. You don't see wealthy people that don't use debt, healthy debt. And, SBA loans, 1 out of 72 go bad. That means that 1 out of 72 businesses that have healthy historic earnings, revenue, a business, a service to provide to the market goes under. So people think, well, what if that business goes under? Well, what if the sun doesn't come up tomorrow? I mean, you're borrowing trouble. It never happened to me. I've never had any business that I've sold go under. And me personally, the only business that went under for me is the one that I didn't sell because of the market turn in 2008. So a lot of people fear things.
But what if you'd have sold it? Whoever bought it would have been screwed.
No, that's not true. Because back then, in fact, I won't mention his name or his company because that might be tacky, but well, 2 of them actually. So I fucked up completely because I had the mentality of, well, I'm doing so well, why would I want to sell? I literally said that to myself, even though I know better. I was just making so much money, I didn't want to let go of it. But 2 other guys, I won't mention their names because a lot of people would know their name, or at least they'd know the company. They sold to banks. And what happened in 2008 was that the B paper went away and you had to be using banks because all the subprime went away. So I had 120 employees working for me and we lost our products overnight, but the bank still had them. So 2 of these guys that I know in 2007 were smart enough to sell to banks. And those banks bought them for a huge multiple. And then one of those guys invested all of that into Apple at the right time, back in 2007. And then he ended up, and I won't mention the name, but he ended up opening up all of the, I'll just say trampoline places. You can deduce yourself who that might be, but all the trampoline places, he's that guy. And all he did was sell his company for, maybe he sold it for 7 or 8 million. He put that in Apple stock, which I wouldn't have done that because I don't know enough about stock or Apple or whatever, but I would have put it into a business. And that's eventually what he did. He put it into Apple. He let it sit there for 4 or 5 years, made a killing, pulled it out and built the nation's largest trampoline business. So same thing, man. I mean, we can talk big like that, or we can go small. If you're making $200,000 a year and you hate your business, just get rid of it and move on up. If you're making $5, $6, $7 million, if it's not bringing you what you want in life, then sell it and move on up. It's not a hard concept when we talk about cars, when we talk about homes, when we talk about lovers or ex-wives. Like, bro, if it's not bringing you what you want, then you can divorce, right? You can sell your car, you can sell your house, you can move up. But when it comes to businesses, they get stuck. Like, no, I love this business. This is what I know. It's making me money. Well, you don't have to live there, bro. You can sell your business. You can do it and move up. But we do it all the time.
You can trade your business for a bigger one.
Yes, absolutely.
So, folks, downstairs, May 2nd. Is it May 2nd?
May 2nd.
Yeah. May 2nd, we're going to be showing you guys how to do this. Chad's going to be showing you how to do this step by step. So if you're listening to this, you got a business that's headed in the right direction, or you qualify. If you want to see if you qualify, go to realbizacquisitions.com, fill out the form. Everyone's not invited, but if you qualify, you'll be invited to this event, and this event will show you exactly how you can liquidate your business and trade it, literally, no money out of your pocket. Trade it for a one doing 10 times the revenue yours is, period. And that literally is how it works. You get rid of yours and basically go to your, what you call an NLB, your next larger business. So if I were going to try and present this as an offer, I would say, ladies and gentlemen, what if I could show you how to 10X your revenue, keyword revenue, because it's not their business revenue. You're going to show them how to literally just make 10 times more money by trading their current business for a new one. Mm-hmm. And the new one is already doing 10 times the revenue. And then theoretically, I would be a hell of a lot more excited going into with my new business. I would get a new sense of adventure, I would have, a whole nother game on my hands.
Absolutely.
And then literally, theoretically, a couple of years later, I could do the same thing, and I could keep doing the same thing and just keep trading up.
So,
because once you do the math, dude,
Yeah,
it's really just a trade.
Yeah, and for your audience, listen, there's a reason for this. Right now, there are countless people with degrees with no jobs. There are so many people that would trade positions with these people. If you're making $300,000 a year, there is somebody out there who's trying to find a job right now to make 80, and they can't find it.
And they'll buy yours.
They'll buy your business. So you're doing God's work at that point. You're giving somebody else an opportunity. You get out of your business. You're able to move up to the NLB, the next larger business. You get to move up. Absolutely.
And folks, he breaks it down step by step. So I suggest you go to realbizacquisitions.com, fill out the app, and see if you're qualified. If you're qualified, we'll see you May 2nd here in Las Vegas, Nevada for a one-day only, limited, exclusive unveiling of what I would call the secret. It's a secret. Why? Because, dude, I've talked to a lot of people. They don't get it.
They don't know it.
But if you sit in this room with me and Chad and a bunch of other business owners for a day, I'll bet you anything you will be convinced that this does work. You may not want to do it still. You don't have to be completely convinced in selling your business, but you should at least come check it out, because what you learn is going to show you something and reveal some things that I think are secrets. Most people do not know about this, or they would be doing it. I would say anyone with a brain in their head that hears it would do it, including me.
And I'm going to give them a valuation. They're going to know what their business is worth whenever they leave the event that we do. I'll tell them what their business is worth that day.
Well, I'm going to drop this episode quickly so we have a little time for it to pepper some listeners. Folks, travel in Las Vegas. Flights are cheap. Nearest hotel's the M, but stay anywhere. We'll have food. It'll be a good time. We'll have a little VIP dinner afterwards. Get here. If you guys want a 10 extra revenue, you want to scale up by 10 times what you're doing, and you're open to creative ways of doing it, although definitely valid ways of doing it, well, then I would suggest you get out here. Go to realbizacquisitions.com, fill out the application, and we'll see you here.
Absolutely.
Till next time, kids, keep it real.